The millennials, as we call them, they have never known a time when there wasn't a Starbucks. 33% of them consume specialty coffees every day. And bookending that group, the younger crowd and the older crowd are each 25% of those people are consuming specialty coffees every day. Hispanics, they are consuming specialty coffees at a higher rate than anybody else. We have growing coffee, harvesting, milling the fruit once it's been harvested, roasting the coffee, and processing it. There's up to 30 different sets of hands that are responsible for coffee all the way from the tree, all the way through the system to the consumer. These are the two types of coffee after they've been taken out of the fruit. The washed pergamino is very typical of what you find in most parts of the world. The honey process, as it's called, it actually has, you see sort of that reddish coat on it? That's a little bit of the fruit that was allowed intentionally to be left on the surface of the seeds. It's dried. The cup quality between these two, and these are both from the same place in Costa Rica, they will taste very, very different from each other in the cup. Sun drying, we really like a lot. It isn't always practical depending on the weather or the altitude of the country that you're at. But if we can buy sun-dried coffees, we always try to. As a roaster, I would like every single coffee bean in that bag that I'm about ready to roast to be identical to all the other beans, to really ensure that the coffee beans are uniform. This is something that we at Farmer Brothers will pay extra money for, or other craft roasters will pay money for. This is a hand sorting line at the dry mill. So they're gonna sit there and pick the same batch of coffee once, twice, 3 times. That's okay though, because it's the best money I can spend because I'm making sure that the coffee that's going into my roasting machines is all very, very uniform, and there aren't any defective beans. It only takes one stinker bean, one bad bean out of those 4,000 in a pound to ruin that entire pound. So the very first thing we do is we take samples from the shipment. We've had to reject coffee before because it was shipped near, not adjacent to, but near a container load of mesquite wood, right? That's how sensitive green coffee is to picking up aromas. This is the common language for describing levels of doneness in coffee. So we have city roast, full city roast, espresso roast, Italian, and then French. But as you get darker and darker and darker, you're trading off the inherent flavors of the coffee for the flavors of the roast. These coffees are separated at 1 minute intervals inside the roasting machine. And then the second row, the third row, and the fourth row, they're separated each by 30 seconds. The darker you roast coffee, the bigger in size they get. They get lighter in weight and larger in volume. When you learn to roast coffee, you can actually hear the coffee talking to you during the roasting process. The first crack, the beans are jumping in size. I know where I'm at when I hear the first crack. I'm not where I want to be, but I know where I'm at. The first crack is driven by steam pressure. The second crack is driven by carbon dioxide pressure on the inside of the beans. We need to package it very promptly after it's been roasted. At Farmer Brothers, we will roast to pack within 4 hours. Grinding the coffee for food service especially is extraordinarily important. The finer you grind coffee, the more cups of dark liquid. Let me put it to you that way, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean, if you're using a really fine grind in a drip system, that the coffee's gonna taste very good. The good stuff in coffee gets dissolved out pretty quickly. There are a lot of acids and things that, to a certain level, are desirable in the final cup to balance the body and the sweeter notes. 4 components to keep in our minds: flavor, body, acidity, and aroma. FBAA. Flavor is either what nature's put into the coffee or what humans have put into the coffee by taking it to a pretty dark roast. So flavor, there isn't a right or a wrong answer to this. You might taste it and go, it just tastes like coffee to me. Or you might taste it and go, by God, I pick up some dark chocolate in that, or I pick up a nut note or something like that. So that's what flavor is. Body is something different. Body are the soluble vegetable oils that are contained in the coffee that when we brew it, they go into solution. So lower grown coffees tend to be more full-bodied. Robusta coffees, which are used in a lot of European espresso blends, you get a huge crema on it. The crema is the foam on the top of espresso, sort of like the foam on the top of a glass of Guinness. So the body in a cup of coffee, we find that very, very pleasurable. The acidity in coffee is very, very desirable. The aroma is very, very self-explanatory. So flavor, body, acidity, and aroma, FBAA. Starbucks has raised the price, along with Kraft and General Foods and quite a few other roasters, what's called the C market, which is the base price that a roaster like me buys the coffee at, has gone up substantially. What's driven it up very rapidly is the problem with drought in Brazil. Brazil is the #1 producer of coffees in the world by a lot. So if Brazil has a bad day, everybody else in the world of coffee has a really bad day, because all these prices are sort of linked to one another. But I got to tell you, after being in this business for 35 years, I've seen the prices go up very sharply. Nobody stops drinking coffee, even when we have to raise our prices, right? So that's one of the very good things about coffee.